Okay, so this week we are looking or focusing on subject-verb agreement. I want you, yes it is, I want you to whisper to the person next to you with your mask on, what is the subject of a sentence and what is the verb again? Whisper to the person, subject is next to you. And then the verb is your action or even something. And now I'm talking about the subject is next to you. We're talking about the verb So fifth grade, if I say, I walked to the park. Does my subject and verb agree in that sentence? No. If I say I walked to the park, then do they agree? Yeah. Yes, so subject and verb agreement is really important because if our subject and our verb don't agree, our sentences sound weird. So at the top of your notes, you can go ahead and write subject-verb agreement in today's date. Or you can just say I walked. Yep, you can also put it in the past tense. Yep. So subject-verb agreement and today's date, which is 2/22/21 or February 22nd, 2021. Michael, quickly, make sure you put your mask on. Thank you, Will, for giving me a thumbs up. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. That's right. I am recording for our virtual learners. I'm using my teacher voice. Not using the regular voice, teacher voice. We have subject verb agreement and today's date at the top. Awesome. Actually, a funny story about teacher voice. I was reading something aloud to my mom. We were looking at some documents she had to sign online, and I was unknowingly using my teacher voice, and she goes, Brooke, calm down. Like, bring your voice down. Because I'm so used to when I'm reading something aloud, I'm using my teacher voice. So, that was a little fun. Okay, so, are we ready to move on? Yeah? Okay. Is anyone ready to roll? Okay, perfect. You're not ready to roll? I'm ready to roll. Not ready to roll. Okay, a subject is a word or words that tell who does the action in a sentence. So if I say, Miss Enting went shopping after school, what is the subject of that sentence? Miss Enting went shopping after school. What's the subject? Elena? Miss Enting. Because Miss Enting went shopping. Miss Enting is doing the verb. So that means Miss Enting is the subject in that sentence. So subject is a word or words that tell who does an action in a sentence. So in that example, when I said Miss Enting, it's not just Enting. The Miss is a part of the name. So Miss Enting. So that's why it says word or words. Sometimes it's more than one. But if I said Zoe went shopping after school, then it would just be Zoe as the subject, one word. Whisper to the person next to you in your own words, what is the subject of a sentence? Make sure you're not in your own words. Who can raise their hand and in their own teacher voice tell us in your own words what the subject of a sentence is? All right, Allison, in your teacher voice, tell us in your own words. You know what it is, but you're having a hard time putting it into your own words. Who can tell us in their own words, in your best teacher voice? What is the subject? Abby?
The subject is a word that describes he or she doing this?
Okay. But is it always a he or a she?
No.
No. You're right. It could be. What else? Max?
It's like the main noun or nouns of it's the main noun or nouns of a sentence.
The main noun or nouns of a sentence. Does anyone have anything else to add on to that? Yes, yes? Okay. Fifth grade, is the subject what the sentence is all about? Yeah, it's what the sentence is all about. Exactly. So when you get a sentence, your subject, that's who or what it's about. So that's why when Abby said he or she, sometimes maybe the sentence is about an animal or it's about an object, right? The ball rolled down the hill. There isn't a person in that sentence, it's an object. Can I move on to the next slide? Yeah. All right, Will, turn around, please. So then we have our verb, and we were talking about verbs last week. A verb tells an action or how a noun is, was, or will be. Because remember, verbs can be in the past tense, present tense, or future tense. So verb, that's our action. It tells us what that noun is doing, and usually it interacts with the subject. So once you have whatever notes written down that you want to write down, put your mask on, whisper to the person next to you in your own words. What is a verb?
A verb tells you what a person is doing. A verb is a verb that tells the person what a person is doing. Jump. A verb tells when the verb. A verb tells the subject what you're doing.
You're ready to have an add about what a verb is. With your mouth.
Jump off the diving board into the pool. I definitely know what it is because I did it twice. Yeah, and then
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Who can raise their hand and tell me, in your own words, using your best teacher voice, what is a verb? Well,
a verb tells you what the subject of the sentence is doing.
Okay, it tells you what the subject of a sentence is doing. Does anyone else have another definition in their own words? Frankie?
A verb tells you, I forgot.
Okay, that's okay. Anyone else? Max?
A verb is like just telling you what someone or something is doing in the sentence.
Yeah. Yes, because there's usually a verb associated with our subject, but sometimes there are other nouns in the sentence that are doing other things. So it's not always just the subject, it's a noun in the sentence, and the verb tells us what it's doing. Mackenzie?
A verb tells what a noun is doing.
Yeah, the verb tells what the noun is doing. It's what you do. It's what you're doing. Yep. All right. Can I go on to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's find subject and verb. Looking at the two sentences, don't say anything, just think. The first one says, Sam runs down the sidewalk. You're thinking about what is the subject in the sentence. Remember, the subject is what the sentence is mainly about, who or what it's mainly about. A verb is what something is doing. And then our second sentence says, Lucas and Tommy listen to the radio. So again, you're thinking about the subject in the sentence and the verb. Put a thumbs up on your desk when you know what our subject in each sentence is and what the verb in each sentence is. Does the subject only have to be one word?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking. Just checking. Voice is up. Yep, word and word. You're right. Thumbs up when you think you got it. Thumbs up when you think you got it. Okay. With your mask on, whisper to your partner, what's the subject Michael, with your mask on. Jack, with your mask on. Yes, yes, with your mask on. Five, four, three, two, one, zero. So, Sam runs down the sidewalk. On the count of three, I want you to tell me the subject of our first sentence. 1, 2, 3.
Sam.
Yes, our sentence is about Sam. And the verb tells us what Sam is doing. So on the count of three, tell me what the verb is in the first sentence. 1, 2, 3.
Run.
Sam runs. Exactly. Now let's look at our second sentence. Lucas and Tommy listen to the radio. Remember, our subject is what the sentence is mainly about. So on the count of three, tell me the subject. 1, 2, 3.
Lucas and Tommy.
Lucas and Tommy. Exactly. Then the verb. 1, 2, 3.
Listen.
I want you, because I started off our lesson today with a sentence that did not have subject-verb agreement. I said, I walked to the park. Now, what do you notice based on the subject and how we're forming the verb, like the ending of the verb? Put your mask on and just share with your partner what do you notice based on these two sentences. What are your observations? Try to share.
And they both have all three stuff. It doesn't sound and every single names are and they're not. But I love
Right. Hold on to those observations. Can I go on to the next slide? Oh, Michael? What's up?
Aren't every single one of these names in eighth grade? Because there's a Sam, there's a third Tommy.
That's just a big coincidence. Okay, waiting for you. Okay.
Also, one of my two friends in the swimming, Lucas and Tommy, they love to listen to the radio.
That's awesome. That's
On
great.
Saturday, we had a meet and they were listening to the radio.
And
That's
Sam is
great.
good at nothing.
Okay, here is our next slide. So, you guys got it. That's great. Okay, so like we were saying, subjects and verbs have to agree. Singular subjects need singular verbs. Plural subjects need plural verbs. So that's why I couldn't say I walk.
You walk. But you can't say
We
we
can't do
walk.
that either. So you might be thinking that we're gonna get into what exactly is a plural verb. So usually you guys, when something's plural, it ends with an S, right? Right? When something's plural, it ends with an S a lot of the time. Are verbs the same way? Think about it. If you say they walked to the park? No,
They walk.
So, do verbs end in S when they are plural? Turn and talk to the people around you. Is that really true? Turn and talk. Mask is on. Frankie, shut the. Oh, thank you. Never mind. I challenge you to come up with an example with your partner that does not fit that, where a plural verb ends with an S. See if you can come up with an example. So fifth grade. Do we have any plural verbs that end with an S? Mackenzie? They run down the street? No. I haven't called on anyone else. Addie? But she is singular.
Sam runs.
So fifth grade, with nouns, when we want to make them plural, we add an S, right, or an ES. With verbs, we don't. And that's what makes it can be a little tricky, because you might think, okay, to make it plural, we add an S. With verbs, it's the opposite. So, when we look, Megan talks to her friend. Is Megan singular or plural?
Singular.
So then our verb, in order for it to be singular, it actually ends with an S. It's the opposite of what it is with nouns. Megan talks to her friend. However, here, our second sentence, Greg and Mark. Is that singular or plural? Plural, because there's two. Greg and Mark play cards. So we don't add an S. It's the opposite with verbs. And it seems weird, but if you try to say it in your head, Greg and Mark plays cards, that doesn't make sense.
Or Megan.
Alright. With the next three sentences, explain to your partner why the verb ends with an S or doesn't end with an S. Turn and talk. For the next three. Back turn around and talk like If you can hear me, touch the top of your head. If you can hear me, touch your shoulder. If you can hear me, touch your wrist. Voice is off. Alright, so our third sentence, when you were discussing with your partner, you should have said, in the third sentence, walks ends with an S because Christy is singular. Remember, it's the opposite. Christy walks her dog. In our fourth sentence, our subject is Brittany. Brittany, that's one person, so it's singular. So our verb then ends with an S because it's singular. Brittany reads a book. Finally, our fifth sentence, our subject is Amy and Sharon. That's two people. So it's plural, so that means our verb does not end in an S. Amy and Sharon work together. I want all eyes on me for a moment. You guys, a lot of what grammar comes down to, and especially with subject-verb agreement, is when you say it in your head, does it make sense? You can tell when a sentence seems a little weird, right? It just sounds kind of weird. That's what you will be kind of testing throughout subject-verb agreement as well. Okay, so do we all agree we have a singular sentence, plural, singular, singular, plural?
Yes.
Okay. So, finding a rule. We talked about this, didn't we? What do we notice about all these singular sentences? Look at the verbs. What do we notice? What do we notice about the verbs in all of these singular sentences? Raise your hand when you see something you notice about the verb. Whisper your observation to your partner. If you can hear me clap once. If you can hear me clap twice. All of our verbs have a what on the end? Tell me.
Yes.
They all have an S. So, when we have a singular subject, we need a singular verb, but we actually form the singular verb by putting an S on the end. Megan talks, Christy walks, Brittany reads. Now, let's look at our plural sentences. What do you notice about the verbs in the plural sentences? Whisper to your partner. With your mask on. If you can hear me clap once. If you can hear me clap twice. In these, there is no what? S. Yep. Alright, and done. Greg and Mark play. We don't say Greg and Mark plays. Amy and Sharon work. We don't say Amy and Sharon work. Nice work. Yes, Matt. There was an infinitive in the other one. You're absolutely right. We had two in the verb. Nice job. So, usually subjects that are plural end in S. So, repeat that sentence to your partner.
Usually
Not that part. So, usually subjects that are plural end in S. Usually verbs that are singular end in S. Richie, usually subjects that are plural end in S. Verbs are the opposite. Usually verbs that are singular end in S. Repeat that sentence to your partner. Usually verbs that are Frankie, what's up? Oh, we're focusing on grammar right now. Ready to rock? So, plural subjects don't end in S.
Plural subjects don't end in S.
No, they do.
They do. Plural subjects.
They do. Plural subjects do end in S. Do singular verbs end in S?
No.
Yes.
No.
Do singular verbs end in S?
Yes.
Different.
Yes.
Do,
So confusing.
listen, do singular subjects end in S?
No.
Do plural verbs end in S? Do plural subjects end in S? Do singular verbs end in S? Alright. Plural subjects, singular verbs end in S. So, this is our rule. Now, no, listen. So these are our rules. Our singular rule is, if your subject is singular, you will need to use a verb that is also singular. So, that can be done by having one of these words in the front, or having a verb that ends in S or ES. I would recommend writing this down. If you started writing instead of talking, you'd probably be done with the first rule by now. So, our singular rule. If your subject is singular, you will need to use a verb that is also singular. So this happens either by, remember, a singular verb ends in S, so having a verb that ends in S, or if you add is, was, has, or does in front of it. Now those are helping verbs, aren't they? Yep. Yes. These are those helping verbs we talked about. So either having a helping verb in front, or the verb has to end in an S to match up with the singular subject. Now our plural rule. That's when your subject is plural. If your subject is plural, you will need to use a verb that is also plural. So, as we know, a plural verb does not end in S or ES. However, if you can use a different kind of verb if you use a certain kind of helping verb in front of it. Now, there's one exception to these rules, and that is when you use the pronoun you. So if we're not talking about ourselves or a group of people over there or anything like that, if we're talking directly to someone and we're using the pronoun you, that's the special circumstance. That's the exception. If your subject is the pronoun you will need to use the plural verb. So if you're using the pronoun you, it's the exact same as plural subject. Because I could say to Max, I wouldn't say you write in your notebook. I would say you write in your notebook. Yeah? Or I could say you are writing. You were writing. You have been writing. No. See, that's that thinking in your head. That doesn't sound quite right. So, when you have the pronoun you as your subject, you're following the same rules as you do for a plural subject. Same rules apply for you as it does for a plural subject. Give me a thumbs up when you have our rules down. Thank you. Thank you. And if you wanted to underneath this chart, you could jot down an example sentence. You could think of an example sentence where the subject is plural, and an example sentence where the subject is singular to help you to demonstrate these rules in action. That's why there's a comma after. If your subject is the pronoun you will need to use the plural verb. That makes sense? Yeah. Max pointed out how under the directions for the pronoun you, we have two yous, one right after another. That's when you use that comma to separate them, because we're talking about the pronoun you, and then it's talking directly to you about what you need to do. Oh, and Michael, we're talking about you. Yep, so if your subject is the pronoun you will need to use a plural verb. And if you're thinking, Miss E, how do I remember which helping verb to use? With the helping verbs that are listed, is, was, has, and does, those are singular. Notice how the L and an S? Whereas are, were, have, and do, not. They are plural. That shows ownership. We're not talking about that. Ready to rock. Ready to rock. Alright, I will know you are ready to move on when you have closed your notebook, because you're done with your notes quietly, and you have quietly taken out where the mountain needs to move. We should not be talking though, because we still have classmates writing notes. So again, I know you're ready to move on when I see you have closed your notebook and you have where the mountain needs to move out and ready to go on your desk. Again, voices should be off. We still have some classmates writing notes. Thank you to those of you who did take out your stuff respectfully and quietly.